I wake up and I'm just like, all right, coverage. Let's make something freaking sweet. I want to not do it sometimes, and then I just can't. I wake up the next day, I'm just like, you wasted an entire day not working on this. Like, what is wrong with you? I remember personally how I felt when I would watch Star City coverage, how I felt when I would watch GP coverage and Pro Tour coverage, and the fact that I could give even like 1% of that to somebody else, the fact that the content that I create is like especially unique is very valuable in and of itself. If you're playing the game and you're doing what everybody else is doing, there's not a chance in hell you are going to ever win at that game. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not possible.
Anuraag Das, or anzidmtg, is a Magic streamer turned Magic coverage specialist. In 2022, when companies like Star City Games stopped providing live coverage of paper events, Anuraag decided to carry the torch. Anuraag traveled to several high-level Magic tournaments throughout the year. He streamed all of them live on his Twitch channel, twitch.tv/anzidmtg. What's crazy about all this is not that Anuraag is chasing his dream. Rather, it's the insane amount of dedication, work, and financial sacrifice involved, if we're being honest. If you love Magic and Magic coverage as much as I do, then you'll appreciate this deep dive into Anuraag's process. This is Humans of Magic with Anuraag Das. Anuraag, what's going on?
Hey James, how's it going? It's been a hot second. I feel like we've talked a bunch, but I'm back. Very excited to be back on the podcast, and looking forward to dive into the details of what we're going to be talking about today. Yeah.
Yeah, are you the first patron of mine who's on the podcast? I think so.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, I'll be very, very honest. When it comes to like actually giving out money for a lot of content, I'll just be honest. I'm pretty few and far in between. There's like maybe like 6 people in total. Your Patreon is one of them because I think what you do is incredible, and so there it is. But yeah, if that's like a fun stat, I guess that's a fun stat. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. No, I mean, I didn't mean anything serious by that. I've always wanted to interview anyway. Like, so basically what I do is I keep a list of people that I need to reach out to and like get in the backlog. And your name has always been on there, especially with all the contents that you've been doing this year.
A lot of stuff this year, yeah.
It's got absolutely nothing 100% to do, 0% to do with the Patreon or whatever. To be honest, I'm not that interested in legacy content anymore, so I think it's just all the stuff that you're doing, like to branch out, is also what's super fascinating, right?
Yeah, no, I think also like where I am as a content creator has certainly shifted from, you know, like back when I did the 365-day stream, it was like legacy every day. If it was only for half an hour, fine, but like now I think I'm on something that is significantly more interesting. Like imagine if you're like one of those like bull riding things, and like this is like a much higher level, and it's like harder to like manage and maintain, and like there are twists and turns everywhere, but it's so satisfying when you can do it right. So yeah. So by the way, before we go into all the coverage stuff, how are you feeling? Like, are you feeling better? Because I know you had COVID for a while, and I did.
You look good today. Like, people who are watching can see the video. Like, you look pretty good, but I mean, you never know, right? So
it's the camera. It's 110% the camera quality. No, I came back from DreamHack. I did get COVID at DreamHack, which was a little bit unfortunate, but I had all of my Thanksgiving break to rest and recover. So at least now I'm good. More importantly, like for Eternal Weekend coming up next weekend, I am in a good state to travel. So that is what was most important for me. I'm glad that, like, if I were to get sick, that the timing didn't cause me to cancel other plans, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I know this is not meant to be like so much on the catching up, but also just like you're in a new place now, right? Because when I interviewed you back in 2020, you were, I think it was San Diego or Houston or one of those places, but now you're in the Bay Area. Is that right? I
am, yeah. So my wife got a job in San Francisco. This is her dream city. I get to work wherever I want remotely, consulting, something like that. And so I was like, all right, let's just move up here. It is colder. It is more expensive. And I love the city a lot. It grew on me quite fast. A lot of things I like about it you can't get in San Diego. It's like the Western version of New York, except a little bit cleaner. So, and not as like erratic and as New York is, but like I really enjoy this city, and it did take a while to get used to, but now I'm in love.
Yeah, I think New York has a certain character, so when people say it's erratic,
like it's actually in a lovable way where it's like when San Fran or Bay Area is erratic, people just don't like it. So it's kind of like a double standard in a way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, New York is weird because I lived there for 6 months, and it's just like there is no place in the world like New York. And if you've been in New York, you know that. If you've heard of New York, you probably know that. So like really comparing anything to New York actually is kind of unfair. But you know, San Francisco is like it's just relaxing. That's just what it is. It's like California vibes, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. So before we go into specific events, I kind of wanted to know your mindset behind coverage, because you're one of the most prolific on the ground people now doing coverage, and your name constantly comes up whenever it comes to things because I guess one, people know about you, and number two, you're volunteering for doing the coverage. You're volunteering to do the coverage. So tell me about how you decided to kind of, because like when we talk, it was like a couple years ago, you were more on the content side, as in terms of like streaming your legacy gameplay or podcasting or doing your own thing, right? Basically doing your own gameplay, doing your own things there. And to me, it kind of feels like you've pivoted. So talk to me about how that came about. Was it like really planned? Was it just kind of like it happened, or like what was it?
Yeah, so I think the most interesting thing that people don't really think of when it comes to creating content is like the business side of thing. Any content creator probably is just like deeply immersed in all like the finances and the marketing and the logistics and the blah, 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 all the boring stuff that like most people don't really, you know, care about because it's not that interesting, right? But for me, I think the shift in my quote unquote content creation path happened when I realized like, all right, you know, I went to Philly, I had an event, had some viewers. Okay, then I went to the next event, you know, had some viewers. And then around the time that I went to Dallas in April, this is the first time that I actually had a little bit of help, you know, with a couple other people in like the production side of things. And the numbers were insane. And to me, what that screamed was like market demand, opportunity, things like that. You know what I mean? And that's when I was just like, all right, you know what? Like, normally I wouldn't be really interested in something like this, but I think because it is just like important and meaningful, I'm going to keep doing it. And I kept doing it, and I iterated every single time, and like, you know, that's how I ended up where I am right now. But like, I think for me, it was just like realizing that there are people out there who want to watch this, right? Because when you think of like Magic the Gathering, there's one thing that you think of, right? And it's just like paper gameplay, like the Pro Tour, for example, right? Is so it's just like 1-in-1 almost synonymous with like Magic the Gathering for me, at least. You know, like getting up Saturday morning, Sunday morning, and watching like the Star City Games coverage of their standard, you know, 10K, and then the next day was Legacy, right? Like that was all of 2014 for me. Like every morning I would get up and I would just be glued to my computer. We don't really have that anymore, and as tragic as it is, there's like a lot of reasons why, and I think I kind of understand it. It's expensive. I mean, actually, I definitely understand it because I'm literally doing it right now, sort of like experiencing it all. And so, yeah, I just felt like there was a massive demand for it, no one to really provide the service, and to me, it's just like I don't want to say emotional, but just like the meaningfulness behind it is what really got to me. It's just like, if I don't do it, nobody else will. And this is something that is very important to literally the life and blood of Magic the Gathering. So I'm going to do it because I love Magic. Bang. Yeah. Also,
timing-wise, it feels like this year things are starting to get a little bit back into normal, right? Like paper is on the menu. In North America and Europe, it seems like that has largely been the trend. People are like happy to play in events again, have the social side again. I do want to ask though, like in terms of what you call meaningful, is it like meaningful to you, meaningful to the community, a combination? Like how exactly would you define that in terms of like being able to watch coverage?
I think the best example is I was at Magic 30 talking to Jared Silva. Two people came up and they just said, hey, we really appreciate what you do. Without what you do, there would have been lots of matches that we just never would have been able to watch. I think for Dallas, the winner, Travis, you know, he came up to me afterwards and was just like, look, this is something that is just so important to me, like being able to like capture the events of this tournament that I won. It was a $30,000 event, and like at the very end of the day, you know, like just imagine like two boxers that are in like the 9th round or whatever, that everyone is tired, and now it's just like sheer raw willpower, skill, all the parts that make like, you know, Magic so exciting, or at least the people behind the game. You know, that's where they get to express themselves, and being able to capture those moments, I think is just, it's iconic. Like Magic has a history, and these matches are part of the history. And to have these matches just disappear forever seems completely unacceptable to me. Just absolutely unacceptable. And so when I say meaningful, I just mean more along the lines of like, look, I could wake up every day if I really wanted to and stream for 4 hours. Like I could stream to like, you know, X amount of viewers, and I could get the job done and things like that. But like, I don't feel like that is solving a unique problem in the community, right? Like whenever I think of like what I want to do, it's pretty straightforward, like business wise, like, okay, is there a problem? And you know, what is the solution? Let's execute the solution, that kind of deal, right? And so I feel like I'm impacting a lot of people by providing them with this specific type of content in a way that me just playing Legacy day in, day out, and even if I switch to Modern too, right? Like I just feel like, and I probably should switch to Modern, but like, I just don't feel like the meaningfulness of the content that I'm creating is at the same level, right? Because I think it just goes down to like who can do what I do. And quite frankly, I think the answer right now is maybe like there's like two or three people I could count on my hand that have the actual capacity to do it. And like if I don't do it, nobody else will. We're just going to lose timeless matches of Magic to just.
So there might be like only 2 or 3 of you that could do what you do in terms of coverage, but maybe there's like 300 people that could play Legacy at a high level or Modern at a high level or whatnot. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, exactly, right? And I think like while I will not say that playing matches of Magic on stream, like for example, right, like Everett Spike, like he does a great job streaming, and the kind of entertainment that he provides to his viewers and the kind of like lessons that he teaches to his viewers are incredible, right? He does that. He solves that role very well. There's no reason for me to also have to do that from like a utility perspective, right? Like I think, you know, watching Spike at 6-0 in like the Dallas events or whatever is like so remarkable. Like that is a different type of value that I can provide. Yeah, and that's just mostly it. Just like Magic as a whole, or Magic, sorry, has, you know, holes in certain places. Some people are plugging certain holes. I will go and plug the other holes. That kind of deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I will give you a devil's advocate, contrarian view though, which is like you're really good at what you do though in terms of gameplay. Like you're a high level player. Like you're not just somebody who, not going to name any names, who like only does commentary or only does like entertainment or TikTok dances. Like you're actually good at what you do. You've worked on your craft. You built up a viewership, and I think I remember watching, it might have been like one of your typical like I just got out of bed, I'm going to play a challenge streams, and you crushed it. Like you were playing, I think you were playing Minsk and Boo or in Control, and it was just like, I mean, this is already at this point I already not been playing that much Legacy, but it's like I had fun watching you and like seeing like your stream chat. I was mostly like just watching and not interacting, but it's like people have fun watching you, and they're like, and I learned something from watching you. So like, I think there's also like uniqueness in what you bring to your category, your niche, right? And like, you are the Legacy version of aspiring Spike, I would say. So in terms of the total package and entertainment.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think statistically, like, I'm not going to lie, like I have really good numbers. I think if you look like the ELO project, MTG ELO project from like way back when it came to like Legacy Grand Prix performance, right up until Bologna, I was like top 10 in the world, right? After Bologna, I dropped down to top 20 because I jet lag. I went 2-3. I was like, it was just a bad week.
Spent too much time sleeving decks. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, too much time sleeving decks. Exactly, right? Like, but like I would say, yeah, like I can play Magic, like, and that's something in the back of my mind is just like I think part of being a great content creator is also being able to just like, okay, well, this is
understanding the shit, right? Understanding what you're covering,
exactly,
too.
Right? Like I think there are two types of people that succeed on Twitch. The first is the category of people that are just extremely entertaining, like ungodly like entertaining. The second is people who are just so talented at the game that you close their channel, and then next thing you know, you're just like watching them again because they're like Reid Duke, for example, right? Like I was watching Reid Duke today play Vintage, and he was like in the X3 bracket, but I didn't give a shit because it's Reid Duke playing Vintage. You know, like that is like, to think of like someone who has that kind of grip and capacity, even though they're not always doing well, that's what it takes to be a great content creator. And like, yes, in theory, like I can play matches of Magic and I can do well, and I understand a lot of like the low level, high level, all sorts of theory for Legacy. But again, it just goes down to the point of like, I don't think there are enough people that can do what I do. So when it comes to my content, I have to make choices. I have to make sacrifices, right? Like I would love to develop my brand more than anything in the world, because I think that is, okay, this is another side. Like I think, the transition between like pre-COVID, COVID, and now like pseudo post-COVID is that all the people that were very good players who failed to develop their brands are going to get left behind in the dust. Sam Black made a really good Twitter post the other day saying how like returning to competitive Magic in 2022, he just didn't really feel like he belonged. And I agree, because I feel like now we are in the era of content creators. Commander is the most popular format for a reason. That's a small aside. But I think that tying back into what I would want personally for me, which is quote unquote like brand development, is something that I kind of just like have to give up. Because nobody else really can do what I do, right? So like, it sucks because I have the capacity to do it. I really enjoy doing commentary, and that's probably the seat that I want to be in. I really enjoy being, you know, on stream playing just like matches of Magic. But if I have to pick and choose, like it's one of those like adult decisions where like I don't get to do what I want to do because there's just such an overwhelming need for what I have to do.
Yeah, or you look at it as a kind of a Venn diagram, right? It's like, what am I good at or passionate at, and what does the market need? And then you try to find some sort of like in between that satisfies you, because I don't think you can ever do something that's just like whatever the fuck I want to do. Like it just doesn't happen when it comes to business or content, right? You have to make some concessions. So it seems like you're kind of like more at peace with like going in this route. I'm only asking because I'm wondering about the business viability, right? Like you do say that is meaningful for the audience. Like, sure, I mean, the people who watch the stream, but will those people actually like help you monetize, right? I mean, that's the $1 million question is like, there's a need, but there's a lot of things in the world. This is a contrarian take, so don't get me wrong, right? Like, and I don't know all the details, but it's like, there's a lot of things in the world that have needs, but are they commercially viable, right? Either for as an industry or for you personally?
The answer to that question is absolutely not. Like, not even close, not even remotely close. Like, if I had to guess the reason why Star City Games just kind of like, after the pandemic, just came back with no coverage for the SCG Con, no Players Championship and things like that, it's just finance. That's really what it is. Like, it's the bottom line, right? Like coverage at the end of the day really is just a glamorous marketing tool, but I see it like... It's a marketing tool that I still think is very important. The problem is like, as a company or as an individual who is investing money into it, you would really just have to think like, am I getting my money's worth out of it? And I could almost guarantee that Star City Games probably wasn't. I know Cedric Phillips has gone on the record on Twitter just saying many times how people just like don't know about anything compared like related to coverage. And after having
or anything
done
financial, I dare say, maybe when it comes to like the unit economics and such, right?
Yeah. Just like it's so tricky to like talk about stuff when like none of the information is really public. But Cedric having seen it all like behind the scenes, and to a degree, me also having gone through this process, and like now I know like, okay, this is how much it costs for each show. This is how much I get doing this. This is how much I'm in the red. Like, you know, it's really hard to argue for the viability or the success of something like this unless there are like radical changes in the project or in the product or at least the development of the product. And that is one of the things that, like, you know, moving forward in 2023, I think I'm going to have to put a lot more energy and effort into. It's interesting too, because like the other day I was just talking to my wife and I was like, look, you know, we have a house that we need to buy, right? And in San Francisco, it's expensive, so I'm trying to save up money. But the amount of money that I have spent on coverage this year, which, I mean, I'm sure you want to know this number, so I will tell you right now. My spreadsheet says 26434.53. That is how much money I have spent personally like out of pocket.
5 figures, right?
Yes.
26K. Okay.
Right.
Like
So,
this
like,
means like the cost of like the travel and like just your time, or like maybe to pay certain people. Like it's a lot of different things, right?
Yeah, so the breakdown goes like this. It's equipment, labor costs, and then travel costs, right? Those are the big main three things. Equipment, I'm happy to buy because it's the kind of investment that like you will reap the benefit of over time. Like let's say you spend like $600 on a camera, right? And you use that camera 15 times during the year for 15 different shows. Nice. That's about like $40 or exactly $40 a show. The hard part is like costs like recurring costs like, internet, for example, right? So I went to Valley Forge in Philly for one of their events. There's a $500 internet fee. That's a one and done kind of deal. I can't really extract value out of that, except for in that one show. Same thing with casters. Casters are pretty expensive. I think I pay like a reasonable rate. I like to give my casters about $25 a round or whatever it is because, first of all, I don't believe in like free labor and things like that people have offered. And even in those situations, I generally say like, I'd still like to pay you because I find your time is pretty valuable. But like over the course of time, that is something that is also like, it adds up. It's expensive, that kind of deal. And it's not like an insane rate either, but I would like to think that it's like competitive with like other platforms and things like that. Maybe like Wizards aside, Wizards pays like some other numbers, like whatever. That
hey, good on you for paying a fair rate. Good on you. Yeah.
And then the other part is just like every single flight, every single like hotel night, or every single Airbnb, or whatever ways I have to like cut costs, things like that. And then even like this is also like not including. So like if you think about like you go on a business trip and you're like, all right, well let me expense like everything because that's if you're literally being uprooted from
hotel accommodations,
right, like meals, like Ubers, none of that is factored into this number that I give you. So if I probably added all that stuff in as well, it's probably easily over 30K.
Now
that being said, like there are a couple like revenue inputs that I've tried throughout the year. I'm not going to say they're the greatest, and we can get into that whenever, but in general, like those are the three major costs. And I would say like what's interesting is like now that I have the infrastructure mostly set up. Oh, and this also doesn't include my labor at all. Like my personal labor is worth
personal
zero.
time,
right. When in reality, like if I had to guess, like professionally, this would cost at least $750 to $1,000 a day. Like in the real world, like big kids, big prices, like actual stuff. That kind of is where the rate would fall, but like again, zero. So like I'm not even factoring any of that sort of stuff into play. Now that being said, so I said those are the three like main buckets. From now moving forward, I would say that each show with like the tech sort of figured out, the internet costs now sort of like downsized to like the minimum that I need to have a good show. I'd say each show is about $2,500 in addition, or just like in total costs, and that's like travel, hotel, casters, and then whatever like tech stuff. Doesn't include Uber, doesn't include food, all that kind of stuff that I would normally expense, but like that's the goal for each show. And I struggle to figure out a way to sort of sustain that, but there are dark methods and dark techniques in order to get there. And also like I will say like this is where I go back to like sort of like the earlier discussion that I was having, which is like brand development. I do believe that developing your brand is something that will cost money. And so the way that I justify all these expenses is that, now people know of me as like quote unquote like the coverage guy, which is like kind of a thing. But that is sort of how I reap personal value out of it. Like I may not necessarily get dollars out of this, but at least, people are starting to recognize me and like the effort that I put into my work. And I think like, normally it's funny because like 2 years ago, if you talk to me, like, I think we even had a conversation about how like I am sort of like a very humble person just because of the way that I was like my Asian culture or whatever. Nowadays, I have sort of like started transitioning to like, look, I'm the shit. I know I'm the shit and I need your help. You know what I mean? Because that's the sort of transition that I realized like that has been spurned by like necessity, which is like, if I can't do this myself over time. So the community or like other people, other companies in the environment really need to pull together. Otherwise, we have a product that is very valuable, considerably cheaper than any other alternative that might just like disappear for good, right? So like, I don't know. I know it sounds kind of weird to talk about like coverage from like this sort of like really like money crunching, like business sort of side, but realistically, like that is for any product of this value that requires this much to sort of like keep the wheels turning, like that's the only way you can think about it.
Oh no, I mean it's not weird at all. In fact, this is the part. Thank you for being so transparent about it. I do have a few questions on top of this, which is number one, like, do you see like a light at the end of the tunnel in terms of like going from red to black? There must be some sort of end game that you're implying that you can actually turn it around. It can be break even or positive or profitable in the future. What do you think those methods could be for you?
Well, yeah, so it's really interesting. I actually had a conversation with Travis Gafford about, so he's like a League of Legends personality who was sort of in the same situation that I'm in. I'm not going to really speak too much to it, like how it's like similar or different, but like he, you know, basically became like a third party freelance caster interviewer kind of deal, and he converted that into like a major business of his own, which is very, very exciting, right? And I'm somewhat in those shoes, in those steps. The big downside though is it's just like the universes that we live in. So he lives in the world of League of Legends, and in that world you have like, you know, Riot Games, you've got Tencent, you've got all these esports organizations that exist there, right? I'm from Magic the Gathering, and we just don't have those same like heavy hitting personality, industry, company, whatever, brands even like in this world. Like we don't have Logitech, we don't have Razer, we don't have Intel. So like the ultimate goal, I would say, is to just keep scaling this project. So for example, let me give you like my average viewership. If I bust open a stream today, I think I can maybe like, if the content is like not miserable, I'd say about like 200, 250 CCVs, right? Sorry, concurrent viewers, so just like average viewership. If I bust open one of these streams, this is how you know that this is a very viable product, is like 3 to 4x the viewership, right? Like which is insane for someone of my size and, you know, just my background, like for streaming and things like that. So the idea is that if I just keep growing and growing and growing and growing, eventually I would hope someone would notice and be like, wow, you have really good numbers. We want to be on those numbers. Here's some money, right? Like that is the ultimate, like that was like,
or maybe an acquisition of some sort. Maybe if you represent
even
yourself
that, like,
as an LLC or as a corp or something, right?
Right. So like eventually I would hope that like if I get big enough, someone would notice. But the problem is that because I live in the world of Magic, it's really hard for me to provide value to Logitech, right? Like what is Intel gonna do with paper Magic, right? Like Intel is in the business of like selling like computers and computer parts and things like that. And I'm sure like they like also want like exposure in their own ways, because Magic is completely unexplored when it comes to like esports orgs and things like that. I can maybe name like 3 or 4 people, like Crokies, maybe Tempo, Caleb, Seth Manfield's on Envy, like very, 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 very few. And I'm not even sure, like, if I scaled up to, like, my target would be, like, if we could get 3,000 viewers for these broadcasts, right? For Dallas, we were able to, in April, for Dallas, we were able to hit 3,000, but I think that was, like, a one-and-done kind of deal, because it was, like, all the hype was there. It was the first, like, return to coverage. People were really excited, and then after that, like, things, like, really did plummet. And those numbers we can also talk about in a little bit, too. But I just worry that, like, I get to the light at the end of the tunnel or whatever, and then I look outside and I just see there's like nothing there, right? Like nobody's really interested.
Right? That's kind of the concern.
Because who's done this? Nobody actually knows the answer to this, and I'm sure, like, you know, okay, let me put it this way too. Like, I've reached out to a lot of like companies in the Magic the Gathering universe, like Ultra Pro, Ultimate Guard, like all these people, right? Like Dragon Shield too, like, and it's hard for me to even like pitch myself to them, which is something that I've been working on this year, like, you know, just trying to like get better at like showing people the value in what I'm doing. But like when you think about it, like how would you sell yourself to a company, right? The first thing you do is you get in their shoes and you say, okay, well, what's important to them? There's only one thing that's important, and that's just the bottom line, money. Like, how can you get dollars into their pockets?
Yeah, and how do I move my product, whether it's sleeves or cards or whatnot, right?
Right. And so that's where it gets tricky, because I can't really guarantee people like, hey, Dragon Shield, like, you know, people are going to watch my stream. I'll put I'll plaster you all over. I like every single nook and cranny, but I can't guarantee sales, right? Like even for like the one time like TCG players sponsored my stream, it was really dicey because like what they wanted to see was like, okay, how many people are going to click your link and buy stuff from our website? And the number wasn't really that high. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it wasn't like good enough from my standards to think that I'm providing them sufficient value. And so that's where it gets really tricky because like, look, I'm not going to like bullshit around with these companies. If I cannot provide you value, I'm not going to approach you, right? Like, because that's just wasting their time, that's wasting my time, and it's potentially burning bridges in the future.
Yeah, your reputation matters too. So
exactly, right? Like, I don't want this to be like some sort of like, I don't want to be like
inflate the numbers or anything like that. So.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you kind of get it, right? So it's tricky because at the end of the day, like, there is a product. I got to figure out how it's useful to people, and that's kind of what I'm in the middle of right now. And I don't know, I also kind of get the feeling that these companies have like been burned before by Magic players who like sign up with them, like think about like Team Card Hoarder, like way back in the day, right? Like Card Hoarder, great, I love them, I use them every day, not literally not sponsored, but like, okay, technically yes, but like not in the scope of this thing. But like they used to have a team, right, where they would send people off to the Pro Tour and then they just canceled the team because they were like, well, it's just not worth our money to do this. Like, we don't, like, somebody wears our shirt, that doesn't convert to sales for us. Why are we doing this, right?
There was an age back then where like companies were more willing to just splash money, to be honest. And I think also this year with the whole global landscape, it's also harder because companies are just tightening their belts, right? So maybe you're onto something, but it's just not working in 2022. You never know, right? It could just be a lot of timing as well.
Yeah. So right now, like the process, how like I generate a majority of my revenue for supporting this is through really okay, I shouldn't say unfortunate, but I'm going to say unfortunate because like I'm not like, I do a lot of sponsored streams by companies like Raid Shadow Legends or like Marvel Strike Force, and like it's the kind of stuff that like I'm not very passionate about, but they also pay a lot of money. And so like at some point what I've learned is like, if I don't sell out, my product will die. If my product dies, people don't get to watch coverage. That is not okay, right? Like this, and I do want to like kind of like dial in on this because I think I've thought about this a lot. It's just like, why do I do this, right? Like I see the number in big red letters. It's just like, you know, you should not be doing this because it's like not good for you, right? 5 digits. And yet, you know, something about coverage is just like, I literally cannot like I want to not do it sometimes, and then I just can't. I wake up the next day and just like, you wasted an entire day not working on this. Like, what is wrong with you? You know what I mean? I think I watched a video of like Hassan Minhaj. Do you know? He's just, the comedian. Exactly, right?
And well, so he does a lot of things, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he talked about like what art was for him, and for him, he was just like, art is like when you have a message that you want to get out, right? And like it's like it you just cannot hold yourself back. Like you have to get it out, right? For me, that's kind of like what coverage is. It's just like not every, but like many living, breathing moments. Like I'll be like, what did I do today to improve the quality of my broadcast? Did I do something good? Like, you know, what did I do today to like sort of beat the restrictions and whatever it is of like the environment that I'm working in? Did I make some progress here? Like, no, then today was not a successful day. Like you like, and then tomorrow, like whip yourself into shape and then get shit done, you know? Cause like, there's just no time to like not think about this, like almost entirely. Otherwise, like, you know, just like, here's the interesting thing too, right? Is like, for Twitch, you're familiar with like subscriptions. It's like what viewers will give you when, you know, they want to show like financial support. What's really interesting to me is like these subscriptions tie directly to whenever I'm doing a show, right? So like right now I'm at about 166 subscribers. I'm like literally looking at the number right now, which is like not bad for Magic. I think it's pretty bad for someone of my size in the grand scheme of Twitch, but that is a different analytical conversation for later. But what's really interesting to me is like I can see like the ebbs and the flows of when I'm doing better, when I'm doing well, right? And it almost always scales exactly with days of broadcasts,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm basically only relevant when those broadcasts are live, and after that, people just like forget, right? Like, so most people, I'm going to put an asterisk on that because I think there are a couple people out there who are just like really just like tried and true maniacal believers and lovers of paper coverage, and they are absolutely like supportive, you know, just like the Rodney Beddells or the Brittany Davises or like the Michael Caffreys of this world, right? Like these people like truly believe in the work that I'm doing, and they show it with their wallets too, which is great. It's kind of like the we have some time, so I'm just gonna like tangentially just keep talking, but like, you know, like when you're making content, the idea is not that you have, you know, 1 million people giving you $1, but you have like 1,000 people giving you $100 a year, and that's how you create your salary, right? Like you're not trying to like get everybody on your side. You're just trying to find the few fanatics who truly believe in what you are doing and the kind of content.
Yeah, it's the Kevin Kelly, right? Was it like 10,000 true fans or 100,000?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like you're not trying to get everybody. You're trying to find your niche, and the world is basically large enough, or with the internet, like it's large enough so that you can find like really targeted fans of yours, right? Yeah.
Right.
Or
yeah, absolutely.
the whales of your content, so to speak. Yeah.
What's really interesting, and I don't mean this in a bad way, and I also don't mean this in a sense of like, so here's the thing, right? As like a content creator, entitlement is like the worst thing that you could possibly ever embrace, but it is a struggle to see sometimes, like, you know, somebody who streams but like maybe isn't quote unquote like as successful like numerically or like by like metrics wise, and then when you look at like their sub count and they're just like 5, 6, 7 times yours, and I'm just like, to me, like, okay, I'm not like, shit, like Magic players, they're not giving me money. Like instead I'm just like, damn, like this speaks to my like value. Am I actually providing something valuable? Which is kind of like one of those tough things as a content creator, to like not get tied into the numbers being like a representation of yourself. But at the end of the day, like now that the bottom line is like slowly creeping up and crawling behind me, it's one of those things that I do ask myself. Now that being said, like I will also say I recently put up like a GoFundMe, and it was really, 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 really like, what's the word that I'm looking for? It kind of just like was really heartwarming to see the community sort of come together and just like say out loud, like, hey, look, what you're doing is important. What you're doing provides value, and the community stands behind you on that. And that is something that like I don't really cry, but like at sometimes I like, some people will come up and I'll just think about it the next day, and I'm just like, you know, these people said such kind words to me, and like I truly feel like what I'm doing is meaningful. That's what I mean by meaningful, right? Like when you are actually able to like provide something of value to somebody else that is like really just changing for them, like in a sense of like we like high stakes Magic, and like we feel emotions, and like it's because of the work that you provide. Thank you, you know, like, so that's sort of tying back into that. But it's tricky. It's super tricky because like I feel like I've put a lot of my time, my tears, my energy, my blood, everything into this, right? So sometimes like seeing it fail is like, not fail, but just like not seeing it succeed as much as I want it to is certainly it just you know, it's not.
Yeah, no. I look, I'm gonna say I'm not in the same domain you're in for content, but I would be lying if I said I wasn't thinking about like the art of content all the time. The Hassan interview you mentioned, I think I watched him on Colin Samir. I watched that interview
That's
like
exactly
3-4 times. Like, I think I saved that clip. Like, I watch all that stuff. So I am very, very passionate about the creator economy. I'm also very aware, just like you are, about your craft. Like, I am like deep in the red. Like I don't, some days I don't even know why I'm doing what I'm doing right now. Literally this podcast or this video podcast. It's like there's no rational motive to do it. Like I should probably be working at McDonald's if I wanted to make more money doing this. But there's something that just keeps me tied to it. And there's almost like, I can't speak for you, but there's almost like this sort of like stubborn arrogance where it's like I want to see this thing succeed because I don't want to ever go to like, oh, James is now doing legacy gameplay or like EDH gameplay. I just don't want to be like the million other creators who are doing that. But I know it's viable, so I'm not trying to attack anybody. But I want to have my own lane, and I feel like you're also someone who wants to carve out your own lane, and you will die like trying to do that. And it's like you're trying to prove something to yourself, right? I mean, it's tricky because as content creators, we need to prove something to ourselves, but at the same time, we need the numbers and the community validation. So it's kind of messed up. But I think about this a lot.
Game. It really is. Yeah. It's like the final level.
The story of this is a big
right?
tangent, but I can't help but think about this as you're talking.
No, I think there's a lot of value in what you're saying, and I do feel it too in a way. And this goes back to what I'm saying in the sense of like okay, at the end of the day, like, I must provide value, right? And it's not just like any type of value. It needs to be like meaningful value that can like translate into I don't know, like if I streamed every day, like, you know, just Magic gameplay, I wouldn't be. It's not something that really like is fulfilling to me. Like I get it. Like there are a couple people that, you know, really do enjoy it, but in terms of like what else I could be doing with my time, like. Let me put it this way. Like the numbers clearly show that working on this is having a much larger impact on the community than just doing my day-to-day streaming, right? Like this is, like you mentioned, like this is something that I've found out that I can do, that I'm very good at, and it has snowballed into a lot of amazing things. I've met a lot of amazing people, a lot of amazing opportunities that I just never would have gotten if I was just like, all right, well, you know, here's day number 3,400, 100, like whatever, of me playing Legacy Control one more time. Let's get into it, right? Like that to me is more just like I'm like shooting the shit in like my Magic club with a bunch of people, like that that I just like it's just like it doesn't speak to me. You know what I mean? Like there are a lot of times where like even during that like whole year of streaming where I was just like, I don't want to be here today. Like I don't want to be doing this because it doesn't like resonate with me as much as possible. And here's the more important thing too, is just like, you're right. Like everybody else is doing it, right? And like if you're playing the game and you're doing what everybody else is doing, there's not a chance in hell you are going to ever win at that game. You know what I mean? Like it's just not possible. You like what becoming one with the crowd does not get you out of the crowd. It literally just puts you in the crowd, right? So I think the fact that the content that I create is like especially unique is very valuable in and of itself. Yes, I am extremely invested in this project, but I think that's also because like for me, maybe it's like my brain is broken or something. I don't really know. Like, but I wake up and I'm just like, all right, coverage. Let's make something freaking sweet. Because I remember personally how I felt when I would watch Star City coverage, how I felt when I would watch GP coverage and Pro Tour coverage. And the fact that I could give even like 1% of that to somebody else, I feel like I cannot. I mean, I probably could, but like,
it feels like a superpower, right? Like you're one of only a handful of people that could wake up and do it. So
yeah, and I've never really tried to like break down what causes me to wake up in the morning and just like have that kind of drive where I'm like every day there must be progress. But maybe that's part of what it is, because I don't feel the same way about streaming regular Magic. I just don't think like it even like results wise too. I think the results do play a big factor in it. It is very satisfying to see a conversion in something that you work really hard on, right? Like for streaming, I would stream and I would get like 250 followers in a month streaming Legacy, right? Like that is just like you put like 60 hours into something and then you get 250 followers. That is not the recipe for success, right? Because at the end of the day, like if you're doing anything business wise, you always want to approach it. You want to work smart, not hard, kind of deal. Yeah. And it would be cool if like it was 250, then 500, then 1,000.
Yeah. How does it scale, like right?
Right.
Yeah.
But that's not how it works in Magic, like or streaming in general. It's just like it's very static growth, and you either have to like find like something that just like makes you snap. Like for example, I think like there were two streamers that were created by Modern Horizons 2. The first is Aspiring Spike, and the second is Doomwake. And I think without that set, things would have been a lot slower for them. I mean, they're great content creators, and I think they were able to also like capitalize on the new set and use that to push themselves like to like that next level of streaming or whatever it is. And in the same sense,
you have to keep in mind survivorship bias. There are only two people in this extremely large pool of streamers, right?
Yeah.
I've actually talked to Spike on the podcast about like timing the Modern Horizons stuff. Like,
absolutely.
He's very open about being right place, right time. There's nothing wrong with that. But it was like a decade of like working on Magic and working on his game to even be in a spot. So it's like, it's so hard. I don't have any other point other than just like, it's so hard. Like, and no one's going to be the next Spike, like, or the next Anu. Like, they have to be themselves. Like, in the same way, like all these things about like being the next Mr. Beast or the next Ludwig, like that's all super flawed, because like, if you're not in the top 1% of what you do, like you don't have a chance. Like,
this is what I was saying earlier, right?
Like you're doing something which you're trying to put yourself into that top 1%. So like, good on you for doing that.
Yeah. No, and I think if I hadn't played Legacy as much as I did beforehand, zero shot that I'd be in this position, because like
oh, really?
The same thing is like how I got off the ground with streaming was I'd be at work and I would be like, all right, here's really cool Magic stuff going on, and then I would notice nobody's online at exactly 2:00 p.m. on East Coast time every day.
Right.
This is my time. I'm live. You know what I mean? And like that's just the right time, the right place. And stumbling into it almost, but it certainly does take time and things like that. There's no way you'll wake up one day and just like randomly be able to skip all the hard work that goes into any of this stuff. And that's just how life is in general, right? Everybody puts in the sweat unless you get really, really lucky. Do not count on getting really, really lucky, because just you're not that guy kind of deal. You know what I mean? I don't know. I feel like a majority of the people that are like you, right? For example, you have put in so much effort into this podcast series, and that is why I think you are successful, right? And you put out a good product and people like what you do, and that is why I think you're successful. Not because like you one day was just like, hey, I'm going to find Reid Duke or, Spike and I'm going to appeal to all their fans. Like, no, like you calculated this, you spent the time, you put the hours in. And same with anybody who is successful, or most people who are successful. Like they put the work in. So
I mean, thank you for the kind words. I actually don't feel I'm successful, or at least I'm not where I want to be. But that's what keeps me going, right? And I did make a very intentional move this year to like go into weekly and go into video, because I think like these are things that I needed to do. And honestly, there was just a lot of like irrational fear holding me back from doing that in the past. Like, can I find the time to do it? Am I going to figure out how to edit videos, which, now I can make, thumbnails. I couldn't do that like 3 months ago. But it's there's a lot of stuff that just holds you back. And it's like now I actually have a little bit of regret, even though regret's not healthy. It's like, fuck, I should have done the YouTube channel like 3 years ago, 2 years ago.
Oh, I'm in the same boat as you. In fact, I am literally swimming right now in my fear of like going all in on YouTube, because when I went all in on Twitch, I was like, I know how much work it takes to do this. And it's just like looking up at the cliff and you're like, I have to climb this. And I just,
because that when you make that intention to climb, then it's like, it's a grind. You're the one who turned me on to Devin Nash, and I've been a huge fan of his. I'm also a patron of his now. He's very well known for talking about Twitch versus YouTube. So I can't help but think about that, when talking to you, right?
I'm in the same boat. If I could go back in time, back to 2017, right before I turned on my first stream, I'd punch myself in the face and be like, record this and put it on YouTube. And then just like,
or design it for YouTube at least, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Like that's the one thing I will say. Like, if anybody is listening to this and you're like debating on content creation, don't touch Twitch. Just get away from this platform, because it's so much. I mean, like, do both. The reality is like, do both, but like, also do it smartly. Don't like, make two pieces of content. You take the same piece of content, blah, blah, blah. There's so much theory about this out there that everyone can like look into, but like YouTube, I wish I had started there. I also just think it's healthier for Magic in general, because Magic is long form content. There's a lot of like calculation and thought process and things like that get involved in there. But that is also a separate conversation. So I'm not going to like drill too deep in it.
Okay. But, so I got another question about the going from red to black, and I'll preface this to say that I have this bad habit of like sounding like I'm trying to problem solve for people on this show. So I'm not trying to do this. I'm just offering a perspective. Like, if you look at like the traditional players, like SCG, right? Yep. They do content, they do coverage, and they can justify it by like, I'm selling cards. So have you thought about like, how do I push the Anu brand beyond just subscriptions, right? Like, should people be able to buy Anu's merch or like something that is like a high margin item, whatever that is, like, or tell them to go to your Patreon or something because because it doesn't take 50% like Twitch, right? Like, are you thinking about those things as well? Like, kind of like taking that traditional model of how coverage was viable and flipping it for your own personal gain.
Yeah, so actually this is a conversation that I don't know if Wilson ever talked to you about this, but I one day I was just walking in New York while my friend was visiting from Dubai, and I was just like, wow.
I don't think I heard this. I don't think I heard anything about Dubai, so yeah.
Okay, well, no, it's not Dubai, but like we were just walking, he was talking to me about this exact same question. He was like, well, like seems like you've figured out the product, but how are you going to make money off of it? And we were just talking, and then suddenly, like, it clicked for me, and it was just like, well, okay, look, I can't buy cards, okay? I can't sell cards, but what I could do is redirect people to, like, buy and sell cards, right? So, like, to answer your question, I'll just say, like, right now, like, yes, there are a lot of, like, other monetization strategies that I'm thinking of, but one thing I immediately called Wilson. I was like, Wilson, look, I have this idea. You're going to think it's so smart. You're going to think it's so great. Listen, I'm going to stream on Twitch, but why don't I put the Cardboard Live extension on, and then like you can just like link to any TCG Play like seller or something like that, so that people can buy cards as they're watching like the finals of this event. They're like, oh wow, Breach is gonna win in like 2 seconds. Might as well buy some grinding stations, like that kind of thing, right? I mean, like I think there's value in coverage because there's like critical information that you get only from coverage, right? Like, which is like living and breathing in the moment of what's gonna win, why it's going to win, because you're watching. You can see that this card was really clutch in this matchup. And Wilson was like, yeah, I've had this idea before as well, and it just didn't pan out because logistics. And I was just like, shit. But like, that's the kind of stuff that I'm kind of interested in too, right? Like now we have like Whatnot. Now we have
Whatnot.
Drip.
Yeah.
Yeah, like those are probably platforms that I should look into a lot more seriously than I am right now. And I'm going to say 2 things about that. The first is, realistically speaking, what's probably happening is the same thing. I'm looking at a cliff, and Whatnot and Drip are all the way at the top. Second thing is no, that's just like it's probably one of those things where like I'm just like, oh no, there is the second thing too. It's just that, and this is something that is interesting as well. It was just like as my product slowly expands, I find that as one single person, there's a lot of times where I'm just stretched too damn thin, right? Because for every next show, I have to like find casters, who's available. I have to like make graphics. All right, cool. I have to make sure that all my equipment is ready, and I have to also make sure that there's something new in the next show that I'm trying out or testing out. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so like at the end of the day, it's just like what I really need to do.
How do you scale your output, right? Because everything has an opportunity cost. So it's like you have to focus on the most important things to literally have the coverage working, so you don't have that much time for like all the little things, right? Or secondary.
Right. What I would like to do is like literally hire somebody so that I can offload some of these responsibilities so I don't have to think about this sort of stuff. But then it gets tricky because like revenue, everything is just boils down to how much money are you making? Can you afford to do this? I know the answer is no, therefore I do it myself. It's the same thing with like video editing. Is just like I would much rather like hire a video editor for YouTube videos than ever have to edit a video myself, because I despise editing, unlike you, which is why I think either A, you're crazy, or B, you just like have found something that you really do enjoy.
I think it's just luck. Like I could have really hated it in another dimension, but
yeah.
But
that's so tough. I think in that sort of sense, like it just boils down to, all right, I need to figure out the revenue streams first, and like while I would say, like, in theory, there are ways to make this so I'm not going broke. In order to hire somebody, you have to be in the green to, like, have a budget for them. And so that's where it gets...
It's so tough to spend money on things like that when you're in the red. That's so tough.
Yes. And here's the other thing, too, right? Like when I was telling you, like, my cost breakdown beforehand, one thing that I told you was, like, all right, I have travel, I have my own labor costs, right? I eat all that up. But in what universe, like, I just don't think there exists another person like me who is willing to not get paid like that. Like, I mean, like, reasonably speaking, why would anybody not want to get paid for the work that they do, right? Like, who else in this world is like, coverage is a passion project for me, and I'm willing to sink as much money as this other guy, like 5 digits worth of like dollars into this. Like nobody is like that. Because what
I think it's also about your value system, because I think there are like less scrupulous or less ethical operators that are willing to just like game people's like passion and just like, and I'm saying you're not one of those people. So it's like, that's
right.
important too, is like being true to yourself, right?
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's just like to make sure that whoever I'm with like cares enough, because there's a very interesting situation that I ran into the other day. Another coverage team was working on a project, and like the owner. Okay, hold up. I'm not gonna. This is actually
Anonymize it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So like the person that was in charge of like technical production was like a literal like investor in the company, right? So obviously this person's going to be very tied to the success of the show. Then when he like, you know, sort of outsourced the job to somebody else, you could clearly tell that the other person who did not have that same level of investment in the company just didn't do as good of a job, because like they like, it's the same thing as like
incentives,
me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like, I cannot not think about this product succeeding. Every
because it
waking moment,
represents you, your brand. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It represents me and like my quality of work. I don't want to like go out there and look sloppy. That's just like not who I am. That's not how I was brought up. So like that's to find somebody else who would feel the exact same way. I just think it's impossible. I just think it's straight up impossible. I also don't know enough people, so maybe it's probably not impossible. But like the bottom line is like money could technically solve this issue. But the right person or people have to be there too. You can't just throw money at it. Otherwise, you're just burning money, literally burning, wasting. Yeah. So scaling is really hard, really, really hard. But with
is
enough
there a model
money,
where you could kind of do it? Because just for people who are listening, like Wilson Hunter is my co-founder for CBL, and we kind of got roped in together because like it was a venture, it was a startup. You know, like we made it a company. We thought that this could, you know, have a lot of future potential. So is there a way that you could potentially like get a partner on board, or like figure out like, you know, maybe making this a startup, or making this like some sort of like equity play could like allow you to find the talent? Because in the end, like, you know, yeah, you know what I mean, right? Like, so there's different ways to do it. Yeah.
So for what it's worth, like I did make a company this year, and then, you know, just like it was mostly for like finances and things like that. But like that sort of, it does exist now. And like, again, like I'm very clearly not doing this for the money. Like I think there are much more valuable things that are more important than the money. Like literally just getting Magic coverage in front of people to watch. But then also like if I could tell you about all the connections that I've made this year, like the networking exercise that this has been, I would say that value, I would not, as like streaming legacy every day, I would not have been able to ever acquire. So like,
yeah,
I don't know. It's like, and so the issue is also just like, if I could find somebody like, you know, like the Wilson to my, you know, James, like that'd be sweet. It's kind of weird, but like in 2022, I feel like it's very hard to go out just like meet new people and sort of like find someone who is as like crazy as I am about something like this. But I'm sure that person is somewhere, and if they ever want to like, you know, get into the mud as deep as I am in on this, I'm more than happy to work on this. It's just like I wouldn't play around. Like I'd be like, hey, like this is something that you must bleed for, because that is the extent to which I'm going to, and I need
because you're bleeding
who's
for
as all
it.
in as I am.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, so yeah, let's get to the coverage stuff. Like, you know, part of this is kind of like the retrospective as well. Where do you want to? I mean, I'm pretty flexible. Do you want to start from the beginning of the year? Sure. Do you want to like go with the more recent stuff? Like,
let's start with the beginning, because I think, honestly, there's not even that much to say about this. It's funny because I was thinking about my first event, which was SCG Con Philly. I think this was one of the first events that Star City had announced.
Give me an idea. Was this like the first quarter of the year, second
Yes,
quarter?
February 2022. Yeah, Feb.
Okay.
And for this one, I remember there was Modern, and then there was Legacy, and I was very stoked about that. So Modern was day 1. I think it was a 10K, and then Legacy was day 2, another 10K. I don't know why but I was like, hey, I'll just stream this. I literally, for the love of me, cannot remember why. And back then, my setup was literally like a phone, like this, and then I'm pretty sure if I'm organized well. Nope, I am not organized well. Just kidding, I'm organized very well. And this, like, literal phone clamp, right? Like, so that's all the tech I had. And it was one of those things where it's just like, all right, you don't have, like, the proper infrastructure to do things, like, super well, but it doesn't matter. Just get your phone and start making content, you know what I mean? And I think that was just what happened there. And I remember, like, that was one of the most stressful events because I had nothing figured out. I had nothing planned. I was like, okay, if I just put, like, a camera over these tables, I remember what it was. It was Eyelash TV. Aerith had done something similar for, like, the Vegas event a while ago, just had a camera over her matches. And I was like, yeah, well, I could do this too. It doesn't seem too hard. But when I was there in the moment, what I suddenly realized was, like, there are so many complications to think about, like how, like internet, like power, like, permissions from Star City Games, like logistics are the most painful thing in the world to have to deal with. And I just wish I never had to. That would make things so much easier. But then even then, when you think about, like, professional coverage, there are bare bones items that you must have in order to get things to work, right? And I'm talking like life totals, names, deck archetypes, round event, like any sort of, like, information, like that people would come in and be like, well, I don't know what I'm watching. Can you please explain? I had none of that stuff figured out, right? And so that's where the scaling process began, because my first stream was with my phone. Even my second stream was with my phone. But the second stream, I was like, you know what? All right, this time I'm going to have a proper tripod that, hold up. You can literally even see like this right here, right? This is the tripod that I took all the way with me to Indy to stream, match the teams event. And that was, honestly, it was successful. I got to add a little overlay with a little command that people could type in so they knew a little bit of what was going on, but it wasn't, like, great by any means. And then,
what were your learnings from those early, I'll call them earlier streams in the year? Because, like, obviously one of the learnings is, like, there's, like, table stakes stuff, literally table stakes. Like, you need to have certain things on the table in order for it to work. But, like, are there other things that, like, are just, like, that carried you for the rest of the year? Just in terms of, I don't know, it might not even be, like, a gear thing. It might just be, like, other things too.
Each show evolved in one way or another. And to me, that was...
like, evolved in real time, or...
Well, as in the sense of just, like, all right, like, in one show, every show, I would come out and be like, all right, I have failed this way, that way, and this other way, right? And the next show, I'm going to solve 2 out of these 3 problems. So for Dallas, or I think for Dallas, for example, is when I finally brought, like, a laptop, and I had cameras connected to my laptop, and I would just stream, do that, like, better, right? And then the show after that, was DreamHack or something like, or no, Syracuse, I think it was, right? And for that show, I was like, all right, well, this time let's get the UI figured out, and let's try to figure out how to create hype with my casters, right? Like, kind of like Reid Duke for Dallas, and I had Reid Duke again for Syracuse, that kind of thing, right? Just like thinking like from a more business side, like, what is necessary. And then after that was just like, all right, well, look, I've certainly figured out that my internet issues are insanely bad, so how can I solve that, right? Like, so, like, every show, there's something or the other that I wanted to improve on, and by the next show, I would have it ready. So, like, for example, for Eternal Weekend, and the problem that I was trying to solve for this show is just, like, beating glare. One of the things that people, I mean, obviously, the sleeves that people use, and sometimes the image is not great, and to the point where, like, you literally cannot see what's on the screen. And I understand, like, to any of these productions, 2 things must be good. Like, your audio, you can never mess up your audio. Audio is the most important thing. And then video, like, it's just like a reflection of me, right? Like, I want the quality of the video to be good. So beating glare is, like, what I have on the docket for this weekend show. Like, I bought a new overhead setup. We can, like, add, like, those light umbrellas and things like that. The problem is like, while I'm pretty sure logistically that'll be fine for Eternal Weekend, next year, the logistic battle between myself and, like, Star City Games to allow me to just bring more stuff with me is, that's something I'm thinking about too. And speaking of, like, that's another thing that is also kind of like a a long-term journey, which is now that I've realized, like, okay, these are my costs for every show. The idea is to figure out how to sort of minimize or maximize the value that I can minimize the cost, maximize the value of everything that's going on. So like airline status, for example, is something that I thought was like a joke, or not really, but like, you know, it wasn't like a really high priority for me. And now I realize like I probably saved like $500-600 just by like not having to check my bags in every single time. Like that, like those are the small sort of things that like they just like poke you out of nowhere from show to show, and then I don't know, you just get a little better every single time. So
it sounds like it's a series of problems that you're solving. Like you're just gradually making the product better. Like you're finding a new problem, or whack-a-mole, you find there's a mole, you whack it, and then there's another one, you whack it, and then it takes like a lot of refinement, right? I'm just wondering if, like, looking back, do you feel like a lot of them are just like inevitable problems that you had to come across, or were some of them preventable? Just like if you, because like I imagine a really established outfit like SCG would not, because they have years and years of that experience, so it's like it's ingrained knowledge. But like for you, you're kind of starting from ground zero, right? So is there any of that is like avoidable, or is it just like kind of like the growing pains?
I would say, I mean, like after a certain show,
because I also sense something in you in that you can be a little bit of a perfectionist in areas, right? Like
there's
you know,
such an interesting conversation behind that.
Because like for example, you're talking about the glare, and maybe like another coverage person just doesn't give a fuck. Right.
So because someone look at it and just be like, well, okay, it's there, it's out of my control, there's nothing I can do, because like here are the logistic requirements, right? Like, I will say without a doubt that none of this coverage that I've done this year would have been possible without like the blessings of like Jared Silva, like at the Star City Game Circuit, right? Like he has been the guy who has been like supporting me throughout the entire year, giving me accesses to do whatever. And I say this genuinely, like from the bottom of my heart, like thank you, Jared, because without your help, it just wouldn't have been possible. The problem is that like when I go to an SCG event, Jared doesn't have like full authority to like give me whatever I want. And I'm pretty sure he would if he could. And so like there are scenarios where like I'm traveling to places where I don't have internet, I don't have power. Like I literally have to, I travel with like 11 to 12 battery banks that I use throughout the weekend. And that's just kind of like a weird position to be in, right? Things like that. And so when I like put a broadcast on, there are a lot of times where I'm just like, well, you know, like it's just the situation that I'm in, right? Like it's just like I cannot break out of the mold that has been crafted around me, because I don't work at Star City Games. I don't work at like, you know, DreamHack or whatever. And I can't be like, hey, this needs to be fixed immediately, right? Like it's just not within my power. And just, I cannot accept no as an answer when it comes to this. This goes back to just like I have some sort of like insatiable psychopathic drive to like put out something that is high quality, because like back in the day, like that's what SCG was. Like Star City Games had very good quality. You know, the GPs at Channel Fireball, they were very good quality. The Pro Tour, I mean, I'm not going to try to compete with the Pro Tour because there's so much more money in that, but like, I mean, there's more money in everything. But like still, like, you know, like in order to create that sort of nostalgic vibe, and then also to have a product that is like, because if you're marketing your product and you're just like, yeah, we have glare, that's just a bug. Like who's like you know, that doesn't sell well, right? Like you like someone's gonna look at you and just be like, well, that's kind of embarrassing.
It has to fit well with your personal standard. I totally understand.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, and so I'm an
and the standard, the gold standard is those players you mentioned. So
exactly right. So like, we might not have it right now, but I don't see any reason why we can't really replicate it, because like there's so much cool tech out there that allows coverage to be a little bit cheaper than it was back in the day. But regardless, like, yeah, I think every single show there's something that I see that could be a little bit better, and there is an element of realism to it. Like, I'm not going to spend $10,000 to like make one pixel on my screen a little bit better, but like it's not like that level of perfectionism. But like glare is something that is unacceptable, right? Or like having like life totals in a way. Like the one big thing that I like, for example, don't really know what to do about right now is like round timers. That is a reasonable thing to think about too, right? It's just like people want to know like what turn are we in if we go, or like how much time is left in the round. Does that impact how players are playing? And like I'm not even sure if that's something that I necessarily want. those are the kind of conversations that I'm having in my hand, right? Like additional features, like are they worth having? Do they look good? Like there's like so much I could talk about for what I want to be. Like
maybe we can talk about just this one part, which is the round timers. Is like when I watch coverage, you don't see a lot of matches while they're in turns or where they're at. So there's some kind of time limitation. They just switch to another table, right? Because there's just so much of it going around. There's usually more than one feature match. Is that how you see things, or do you want to have like your own take on it? Or maybe I'm outdated in my understanding because I'm not a professional coverage person. That's what I remember. So
I think from my end, like one of the coolest things that I feel like I can do on my stream, which is quite incredible, is like I can do backup matches, right? Like time shifted, proper, just like backup matches. So like, but I think it's like one of those things where it's just like when you are providing like a quality package and you're just like, okay, well, this is a critical piece of information because it can dictate like whether or not the control player, 45 minutes into the round is going to suddenly like, aggressively cast Swords to Plowshares on a Gaddock Teague or whatever it might be to like resolve an intrigue because that's their only out kind of deal. You see what I'm saying? Like those like I'm speaking in legacy terms, but like
sure,
those are the kinds of things that
better
I'm
understand the gameplay where they're at. Yeah.
Right. It impacts the gameplay. And like at some point, like Magic is a game where like, okay, maybe someone who's new doesn't need this piece of information, but you don't want to just cater to one category of an audience, right? You want to like you want it to be like exciting, high quality for lots of people, and the people closer to the like, more experienced end of the spectrum will be like, yeah, I mean the timer does tell me like, okay, 13 minutes left for game 3. That's not enough time. Something crazy is about to happen. It's like is that information worth the amount of effort to put into the stream, right? And sometimes I'm like, well, just put it in there because you want to have a final product. But then the other part of me is like, okay, well, you have like 100 different things that you could be working on.
Yeah.
Is this really the one that you want to focus on more, especially at this kind of cost? Like, so like business decisions is almost.
Is this the hill that you want to, fixate or die on or live on, right? In terms of like the looking back, because like we won't go into like super specifics of everything because you've done so many events, but like. You mentioned the glare, but like in terms of like the technical items on your bucket list, do you feel like you're mostly there? Do you feel like, can you put a percentage number on like where you are like relative to your ideal technical production?
So I think equipment wise, like here's the thing, right? Like an iPhone 14 or what is this? A Note 22 is just a very solid piece of tech, right?
Yeah.
That's not where I personally find my troubles are anymore, because I think I've capped out on like the tech side of improvements. What I'm mostly worried about now are the logistical restrictions. Like, for example, if I go to a Star City Games event, right, I don't have a plug that I can plug my laptop into. What does that mean, right? What are the ramifications of this? Well, I mean, that means I have a battery bank, okay? A battery bank that will last me like 4 hours at a time. That means I need to find a way to charge my battery bank in between rounds or bring multiple battery banks, like, right? So then, the correlation from that is then like, well, okay, that means that, because I don't have internet provided, for example, I can't have like Discord show me the videos for the people that are talking about the matches because it's just too much data and I can't afford that, right? So like right now, those are the kind of things, like there are parameters that are very clearly stopping me from going to like the full on coverage like level. And I don't know how to break those because those are out of my control, and I don't like
cost
being the kind of person that...
or like org restrictive, let's call it, because you're not a contractor with SCG, so you don't have access to certain things.
Right. Like I'm sure like if I signed a contract with like, Jared and Pete and whoever, and then it was like, hey, I'll go to the next 3 shows, you give me this, this, and this, and then I will provide that, that, and that. Like then it's very possible, to have like, all right, like 2 computers and a setup. I've seen like the gurus of this craft and what they can do, and I know what is exactly possible with like a couple suitcases worth of tech, right? So I know that I have the potential to do something insane, like crazy, like really nice. It's just, this is why I was saying earlier, like the logistic permissions are the most important thing, because that's not something that I can fix by just throwing money at a problem. That's something that I have to talk to somebody about. I have to convince them what I'm doing is really good. And that is a sort of salesmanship that is like, again, something that I've been working on, because I'm not really the kind of person that really like toots my own horn. But in this situation, I realize that it is necessary to really impress upon the value of what I'm working on. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about the commentary side. Like clearly you've worked on that and you hire commentators. Like just looking at this whole year, like how has that evolved? Like in terms of maybe your own personal output, or like even like having a team, or like, you know, like have there been like any level up moments or realizations there?
Yeah, so I think the most powerful thing that I have learned about this, or like it's here's the thing, right? Magic commentary is in like such a backwards position. I don't feel like there are enough opportunities for the amount of people that want to do coverage to do coverage. So finally being in a position where like, all right, like I own this show, and I really want to give the people that like, I want to give the people a chance, right? So like for the summit, like 2 weeks ago, I worked with Felix Slew, who is a radio broadcasting student, and he was like, hey, I'd like to do play-by-play for like the Legacy event. And, you know, I was like, you know what? All right, I can make that happen because this is like my show. And whereas normally, like, you know, I don't know, who would Felix have approached in order to do something like this, right? It's like really, really, really hard because there just simply aren't enough events. So being able to give like the opportunity to a lot of people is something that is quite nice. What I've also learned is that like coverage is, the way I think about coverage is so different from the way that other people might think about coverage, in the sense of like, I think about coverage almost like robotically, very like logically, like, you know, and this is, it's just like, all right, you have a match, you talk about like the decks that are going to be played, you talk about a little bit about what's going on, and then you dive into the match, and then you know, get to do like more nuanced analysis, that kind of thing, right? But a lot of people do things differently. Some people see coverage as a way to like just like shoot the shit, kind of just like talk to the other person about whatever it might be. There was one match where I had two casters that basically did not talk about the match at all, and for me, like that to me was like a red flag. I was like, this is not okay, right? Because what I want is, you know, like a quote unquote like a professional package kind of deal.
You see it as kind of like a symbiotic relationship. Like it needs to reflect like the game, right? Or it needs to like there's certain norms that you feel need to be adhered to.
Yes, yeah, definitely. I think there are like baseline requirements that as a caster like you have to do, and that is mostly like related to just like talking about the game. I feel like what ends up happening is that there are a lot of casters out there who like do the meta thing where like, okay, I think like if you think about like why Cedric and Philip are great, it's because they do a damn good job at talking about
Cedric the game, and Patrick, right?
I'm sorry, yes, Cedric and Patrick. Yeah, my apologies. Yeah, Cedric Phillips and Patrick Sullivan. Why they're great is because they do a damn good job about talking about the match, but then also they have like that charm between the two of them, right? And I find that a lot of people will think that like that charm is what sells them, when in reality it's like they're just like so fundamentally like their technicals are so good that that's what really drives it. And then the icing that they sprinkle on the cake is like just, I mean, their personality.
Oh, totally. Like there's a baseline like 10,000 hours kind of thing where it's like you have to get good at the building blocks before you can even like try to deviate from that. Like even this podcast, like it feels more conversational now, I'm sure, for you and other people this year, but it's like I couldn't do this on day one, right? I had to actually figure out first, how the fuck do I actually interview people? Like, how do I used to have, if you remember, I used to have like an outline and things like that, but you can only deviate from the playbook once you've done the basic playbook enough. People just like jump to like what they see like someone else do. No, that doesn't work. Like you have to actually put in the damn hours first.
Right.
Sorry, this is soapbox time, but like you have to master the basics first.
No, you're absolutely right. This is sort of like I think like the best way to explain this to, like, it was like, imagine a Magic player, right? And you have the decision, or like a poker player, and you have the decision between the technically correct play or like a bluff, right? And what will every pro tell you to do? Make the technical play, right? The same thing applies to commentary. It's just like, do the technical commentary, and then like, once you've done like a majority of the work, like then
do the level one thing, literally say what is happening.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And here's the problem. I will never, ever get upset at any of my casters, because I tell them, first of all, like, look, like this is not like the end all be all. We are not on the Pro Tour. We're not on a Grand Prix, right? I'm just like a guy. I'm just trying to provide coverage. So like, I appreciate that you are here, you know, giving me your time, and so like, fine, just do you kind of deal, right? However, one thing that I do note is that there's no real process for casters to get better. There's no commentary school. There's no like.
Yeah,
I don't
that's
think
so
most
true.
people like.
It's like just telling somebody like, here's a paintbrush, go paint.
Yes, exactly, right? Like, and the worst part is like you tell them that, and then like nobody really ever like goes back and watches their work.
Mhm.
Like, you know, that's how you would actively get better.
So you know
at this
that's
kind
how
of thing.
Wizards does it, right? Like Wizards actually has like a Paul Cheon like analyze like commentators
Yeah,
and actually
I've-
give them feedback, like coaching. Yeah.
Right. And so like that is something that I would be really cool to see at a lower level, not just at the hands of Wizards. Like if you make like I don't know, this is a business idea for somebody whoever wants to take like a casting agency or whatever, where you like train your professionals and then you can, you know, sort of market them out to different projects and things like that. But like I do feel like commentary game in Magic a little bit weak. I think the process to like improve it isn't really there, and that's probably why. But then I think there are also like people in Magic who have been doing it for so damn long that they're just really good. Like think about your Cedrics and your Patricks, but also like, you know, like Monty DeVuti, like maybe one of the best play-by-play casters who's just like out there right now. Corey Baumeister also insanely very good at what he does. You know, like that's the kind of stuff that I'm thinking about. And what's also really interesting too is it's just like being the best player does not make you a great caster, right? They're two very different things.
Nor the best coach or whatever adjacent profession. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's a very nuanced business. My real honest answer is just I just don't have the time to fucking like train somebody because I've got so much other stuff going on. But I do think that the people that do coverage and casting like could benefit from a lot of just like self retrospection, like watching your prior casts and seeing like, oh wow,
reflecting on like what they did, right?
exactly.
Kind of like
Reflecting,
playing Magic. Like you should play less.
Yes.
You should do less grinding leagues and more actually watching replays.
Right, exactly. And so that applies to, realistically speaking, everything. Just like the sort of self-review thing is just funny because like I don't think like Magic commentary has really been like molded or finalized into like a people just don't see it the same way when it is something that needs to be seen that way.
Yeah. So I don't know if you like have heard like somebody like a Tim Ferriss say this. Like, he's like kind of the 4-hour work week, but also like he does a lot of podcasting. He has this phrase called like, it's like a visualization thing, right? It's like, what would this look like if this were easy? It's basically like a modified version of the 80-20 rule, which is like, you know, 20% of the work yields 80% of results. So it's kind of like, have you thought about thinking about coverage, like thinking about extremes, right? So I'll give you an example, right? Well, if you're not completely satisfied with commentary, can you push some sort of extreme word and just say like, I'm going to get really experimental. I'm just not going to have commentators, or I'm going to use like AI or like some crazy like alternative to that, or just have people like sit down and do commentary like guerrilla style, which I know you've done on occasion too. But like sometimes the best way to look at problems is to not look at it traditionally and just think about what would it look like if this was like easy or like crazy or like blow apart expectations. I'm wondering if you think about this when it comes to like the technical aspect or about coverage. Because like,
wow.
And you have to be frugal, because you have to be frugal. So it's like sometimes frugality dictates just flip the fucking thing around. Like maybe there are no sacred cows, right? Maybe it's all, I mean, everything's in our minds, but you know what I mean, right?
Yeah, that's actually really interesting. I mean, now that my first takeaway is damn, maybe I need to do like some sort of like reflection of my own process to see how I can sort of evolve and iterate that. Because no, I'll be very honest. Like I haven't really tried to like shatter the the box or whatever I have.
Yeah, and to be fair, like there's a certain like adherence for like things work because they work, right? It sounds very reductive, but like there's a tried and true method. So I'm not saying like blow it up and like just make it look like something from outer space, but like it's useful sometimes, I think, to just think about like, what would this look like if I had no constraints, or like if I had to do this with $0 budget or something.
Yeah. Oh, that is somebody had asked me that before, and I didn't have an answer, because that's when it's funny, as I was applying for sponsorships and someone said like, hey, if money is not a concern, what brands do you want to work with? And I had never actually thought about that question, and so I will admit that is one of the questions that like I don't have a good answer for, because I just haven't thought about it. But if I had to guess, like if money wasn't like an issue, oh my goodness, no, I think the first thing that I would, so here I do have a firm, like a fundamental belief, which is like I like to find people and I like to grow with them. I've told this to some of the teams that I've worked on. It's just like, look, like you may not be the best now, but let's give it like 4 or 5 shows, and I want you to improve, because it's sort of just like I invest in them, and then like eventually like they get better, and then I sort of like we work together, and so I get my broadcasts are better because I have better casting, right? Like that is
you're
one
growing
of the
together. Yeah,
yeah. I also am kind of okay with taking chances on a lot of people, to the point where, like, you know, I mentioned Felix earlier, but his very first round, he didn't have the proper mic output connected, and like I heard it was like webcam quality audio, and I was just like, oh no, I can't believe I've taken a chance on this. And then, you know, I realized, wait a minute, he's a radio broadcasting, so like in between rounds, I was like, wait, adjust your mic, fix it to the whatever it was, right? Like those are the kind of things like that, like can go both well and then also poorly at times. So it's tricky. I would say I take a healthy amount of chances when it comes to casting, because I'm in a position where, like, okay, then this might be something that's all honestly kind of nice for me specifically, but Star City Games and Channel Fireball and Wizards, they're not allowed to fuck up, right? But I'm just a guy who's traveling across the country, and so like if I mess up, like if my internet cuts out one day, I mean, I did what I could, guys. Like I literally flew out, and then like I did everything right, but my internet like crapped out because of this or that reason, or like I can't fix the glare because, like, you know, logistic reasons. Not to say that I don't want to like be okay with those answers, but like if for some reason something went wrong, like yes, I could. Yeah, people are not going to crucify me like they would like an actual company. So like I get to take a lot more chances, and I get to take a lot more risks on people specifically. And I think honestly, like here's the thing too, when it comes to like your broadcasts, like I do believe that the commentators are sort of just like the heart of the show, because they are what is it called? They are like the interface between the on-screen gameplay and the audience, right? And so they get to control basically the entire vibe of the cast, which is why, you know, this is why I think like Corey Baumeister maybe like one of my more favorite casters, is because he's got so much fucking energy that he just kills it, right? Like I did casting once with Corey, and he's like a young puppy. Like he's just like, he's smiling all the time. He's always positive and enthusiastic, and like he might call out some things here and there, but that's just like part of the job, right? Like, and so I don't know, that's the kind of stuff that I personally find valuable and or interesting. And it's interesting too to see how like a lot of people also react to coverage too, because like, you know, Jarvis, for example, is someone who, when he first started streaming, he's very
Jarvis Yu, right? From
Jarvis
Legacy,
Yu, yeah, exactly, right?
And other
very analytically minded, very like educationally based. And then if you look at him today, he not only does all of that, but he does understand that like he's playing the game, right? And so sometimes if somebody top decks the lethal lightning bolt, he's going to scream and he's going to yell. And I think that's not something that he used to be able to do. He knows how to sell himself, right? He understands what the job is asking for. Like, those are the kinds of like developments that I'm looking to also see in the people that I work with, right? Just like understanding like, hey, you know, like it's a show. It's supposed to be fun. How do I make this more fun as a caster? And like, this is the one thing also that makes me really sad about like the work I do sometimes, is that I want to be in that seat, but I have to be in my seat. It's like one of those adult decisions. At some point, though, I do need to figure out, because, and this is not what you're asking for, but like I think developing my brand also requires me to be in that seat, the casting seat, so that people can sort of hear me talk and get excited about my broadcast as opposed to my broadcast. But yeah.
Or maybe at least the person in front of the camera somehow like conducting the interviews or like things between rounds, which you have done, which is good.
So like, it's funny because my very, very first show, or maybe it was the Dallas show. It was the one that had peaked 3,000 viewers. The only piece of feedback that I got on Twitter was some random person being like, hey, look, man, the matches of Magic were great. You were the weakest part of the broadcast. And like, I'm not going to obviously like break down at the sight of one Twitter comment, but like it really did speak to me. And part of me has to wonder how I can sort of improve on that process. But that's another thing too. Like, you're asking how I can improve my streams. I think the off match segments where like it's, you know, there's no Magic playing or whatever, filling up that time with like B-roll or like funny clips or videos and things like that. That's like, I think also the next step to my broadcast. It's just like how to find like interesting things to put on the stream that kill downtime. So
Yeah. Oh, you could always do it. The what's the guy who's always like rebroadcasting old Magic?
Oh,
matches?
Will. Yeah. Will's a great guy. Will's a great guy.
Maybe that's a good filler or something. Just or
like
unauthorized
Star City
footage.
Games best of highlights and things like that. Or like, here's what I could do. I could literally like sell like, hey, cool stuff. Yo, let's play this video during like a 5-minute video during this break. You know, like of your content on your page, selling your cards. Like, there's so many things to go about it. But wow, now honestly, James, you just given me like another wave of like
I mean that because that idea is free and the content is free. Just go with it, Or I don't know, maybe like Anu's classic matches when he played against Reid Duke or whatever.
Oh God, not that one. Anything that was a great match technically, but then like the comments were
Elo Punters. Is it Elo Punters like highlights? If those exist?
Yeah. Just like there's so many different things. But again, it's one of those things where like I guess like if I want to iterate on my show, that's one of the things that one of the most necessary things to do. And like, for example, other things too, small things, just like have an intro reel, have intro segments and outro segments and things like that, right? Like to make it feel like a professional broadcast.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that I could easily improve upon. It's just going to take time, effort, money, bunch of those things.
Everything's a hill that you have to climb, and it takes time.
There's no easy way to the top. No, it's just
Yeah. I was thinking about GP Reid Duke, not in the sense that you guys played a match together, but just in terms of like that was a very interesting way to do coverage where like they mic the player. I mean, is that something that could possibly be doable instead of commentary, like the traditional commentary, or spliced, or is that just like a logistical nightmare?
No, I think it's pretty simple actually. The problem is like, so I've tried.
The problem is the hero arc, because like people want to follow Reid Duke, and someone who is not as charismatic or
not everybody
known is literally not anyone else is Reid Duke. So that's
So that's where it's getting interesting. So like I'll tell you like one idea that I had in mind was teaming up with like any of the like Team Ultra Pro or Team Ultimate Guard or whoever it is, and then like broadcasting their players throughout the day. Because here's the thing about coverage, and this is something that I
there's kind of a narrative,
Yes, that is the most important word for coverage in the history of all words.
The story, right?
Right,
Yeah.
It's the story. It's just like, why should you come back the next stream to watch me, or like to watch the content, right? And like there are two ways to go about it, and this is something that I learned from Cedric. But basically, he said like for the Star City Games series, there were a couple options. The first was you find like really wacky decks in the metagame, and you use that to lure people in to watch, right? Because they want to see like how does like Grixis Tinker Breach do in Vintage or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Problem is like metagames are never like they will eventually get solved, and then you have really boring content. The second thing, and this is the one that SCG chose because it makes so much sense, it's just so much easier, is to find players that are charismatic, that play really well, that draw the people in, and that's why they had the Players Championship to begin with, because that was their marketing tool.
They have the leaderboard, and like people come in like week in and week out. Yeah,
you want people to watch like all the Zan Syeds and all the Jeremy Bertarionis, all the people that like grind day in day out to dominate your circuit. You want to see that, right? And so now that is the problem right now with my show more than anything else, is that
continuity, right, is one of the challenges.
Yes, exactly. To have like a leaderboard circuit, for example, that gives people a reason to not only play in your circuit, but then also to come back and watch the success, the narratives of the people that are competing. And that's one of the things I think that NRG does really well. They have that leaderboard circuit, they have the championship series and things like that. And it's not as big as Star City Games, but I don't give a shit. Like, it's just fun to be able to tune in and see like, okay, well, this player is doing this well at this event, and that's the impact is like they're going to make the end of year slot, things like that. You know what I mean? So narratives, very important.
Oh yeah. Very important. We all know about, well, I shouldn't say we all know, but a lot of people know about it, but it's very hard to pull off in practice, for sure.
Exactly. Because you've got to find the right people too, right? Like Ross Merriam is one person that I would love to make a storyline about, because Ross is just freaking hilarious. He's got great stories. He knows how to tell them very well too. Reid is like the perfect example, but Reid is also just like an angel. He's like perfect in every capacity. So like,
Yeah. I think the
finding
traveling
your diamond in the
grinder
rough,
narrative
yeah.
is always good. It's about like hitching yourself to that particular wagon. Like you got to find the wagon
Yeah.
and it's got to work out. And sometimes like things also don't work out. Like some players you might follow them and then they crash and burn. Some players like you don't expect it to work out and they have this spectacular rise. Like that's what makes coverage or Magic interesting.
Yeah.
There's another thing too, which is like, of course, everything's a function of time, but I think people also enjoy the kind of like creators documenting the creative process. Have you thought about like also just like, you know, while you're doing your road trip, while you're like getting through terminals, like almost like the Casey Neistat kind of like vlog stuff where it's like you're showing the behind the scenes, like you're letting people develop an empathy for how hard it is to fucking do coverage because like it's all the stuff that you just described over the past hour. Like this is some real shit and people only see the last 5%, the final product. Like, is there something there that potentially you can document, build an audience, or maybe even like monetize off of, if we're being honest?
Well, so this goes back to this is a smart idea actually, now that I think about it. But like it's just developing that personality, the brand development, right? Like again, I understand that a lot of the reason, like there's so many pros out there now who would just like, you knew them back in the day because they were freaking good at Magic, and now you don't know where they are, and that's because they just didn't develop a brand for themselves, right? Like,
yeah.
And I think that,
and they're not able to tell their story independently of like a Pro Tour production and things like that.
Right. Exactly, yeah. Right? And that's why you still see Reid Duke at the top of Twitch streams, and you see like Caleb and Spike, and then like even like Manguchi. Manguchi is the perfect person to sort of describe how like he took in addition to like him just being like a monster at Magic, he also put his heart and soul out onto his Twitch streams, and like look at that, people love him now, right? And so I think in a sense that's something that's very important for me to also do. Like I mentioned though, it's kind of hard because I'm working behind the scenes so much that that's not really an excuse. I should find a solution to it. So, but yeah, like I think turning the whole weekend adventure into something that is not just about the Magic, but then also the process. Like right now, like what I want to do is sort of act as quote unquote the host role for these shows. So like go live half an hour before the event, have 30 minutes of maybe like a metagame discussion or things like that. And then once the matches start, like feed over to my casters and things like that. But this is the sort of content too that I think could be very useful as well. Just like almost like vlogging the whole experience.
And you could remix that into like, intermission or like, because like about the thing about content is just like, you got to figure out how to like repurpose it and remix it, right? So this could be like stuff that goes on different platforms. It could be like stuff that you play between rounds. Like there could be a lot of things. Like you could even make this into like a podcast, like, while you're traveling, just like monologuing or like talking to people. Like you could remix this in a lot of different ways. Of course, it all takes work, but
that is the that is the hard part. No, but I think like those are the kind of ideas that like I need to inject into the stream, because I think that is currently where I am lacking the most. I can do like the technicals, I can put out the Magic, the gameplay, but then it's all the other stuff that turns a stream from just another coverage broadcast into like a full-on production, but then also like the brand development thing too, right? Like right now, you know what the saddest thing is I don't have a logo. I don't have a logo, and I can't for the life of me tell you why I don't have a logo. I should have a logo, but those are the kind of things that I need to.
Don't you have one just with your Twitch, or you want something different?
Something probably dedicated to like me, agnostic of like Twitch.
Oh, okay.
Because I think my icon for Twitch right now is just like an old picture of Sensei's Divining Top or something like that. You know what I mean? It's like that's not like a logo. So like I think that those are the kind of things that I really need to work on. So sort of just like develop my brand and 2023. That's what the majority of the focus is going to be, I think, because I think right now I've got the product and I can sell it, but what I need to do is sort of like do all the extra filming and stuff like that. So all the sort of video editing that you're working on right now, I think I'm gonna have to dive in there with you, just like paddling the other.
I know you don't like it. Like I don't know. It'll be hard to get a videographer, but it'd be nice if you were like a Gary Vee and someone just literally followed you around all day and just like recorded everything that came out of your mouth, right?
I've literally talked to somebody about doing something similar to that, so we'll see how that goes, because you could turn that into like a it's just good. It'd be good content. Like it'd be expensive, but like if I'm not going to do it, there's got to be some cost to it. So yeah, I'm also the kind of person that is not afraid of trying something once at least. Like if it is a really good video, if it gets received well, that kind of thing, then I'm like all for it. You know what I mean? So taking a chance on that kind of thing, especially something that has like very apparent value at the surface level, pretty easy to just dive into, sort of lock into.
I mean, to be honest, I wouldn't have even thrown these suggestions at you through this interview if I didn't feel like you were like a very adventurous person from a content perspective. Like, kudos to you, man. I want to say this directly to you. Like, you always strike me as someone who's like just willing to like try new things. I think that's really important. Like to have that spirit of experimentation, basically. I think that's so key. I do want to leave you with one last question, which is, how do you feel about where Magic itself is going, or competitive Magic, or what you're covering in the near future? Because you're so tuned in to like regionals and like these events. Like how are you feeling about it? You know?
That's a really good question. I do think I'll just repeat. Like earlier, I said that we're kind of just in the era of content creation and Commander and things like that, and I think competitive Magic, there's a lot of people that want it, you know what I mean? Like, and I think it's really hard for me too, because I feel like I'm sort of like in an echo chamber sometimes. Like I want to access the people that don't care about, you know, the Pioneer RC, or like all the Commander people that, you know, go to watch Commander content and things like that. Those are the people that I would like to break into, right? Because I think the 25 or 10% of the audience that cares about Pro Magic, and, you know, I have those people, they know that I, you know, what I provide and things like that. Cool. All right. Yeah. But what about the people that don't? And so, I don't know. I think there's a ceiling to how much value competitive Magic will provide. So like an interesting way to put this is like for DreamHack Atlanta, right? Like the show went pretty well. I think we peaked at about 3,500 viewers, but we never went above that. And I don't know if that necessarily means that is the content saturation, like that is the highest the market will go, or if there are other reasons that factored into why we couldn't go above 3,500. Like maybe people just didn't know about it. I'm sure. I mean, because here's the other thing too, right? Like Wizards had about 11,000 CCVs, and they had about 15,000 like peak viewers. So clearly, you know, something like 3,500 compared to 15,000, like that's a math problem, or there's a solution to that, and I don't know what it is. But like, I have to wonder if we couldn't access the rest of the market because they're not the traditional, you know, hey, we like competitive Magic, right? Like if you think about the Wizards of the Coast channel, they have access to like weekly MTG, for example, where they just talk about cool shit that's happening with all the sets. A lot of people probably just tune in for that, and those are the people that won't really tune in for watching, you know, like, I don't know, round 8 of a Star City Games event. And so yeah, finding out how to access those people is a real challenge, and I don't think it's only competitive Magic that is the key to this puzzle.
Right. So you're saying that you're willing to be flexible and maybe consider like finding ways to tap into those audiences, right? Not saying that it's exactly like a superset of the competitive audience, but they might even be just like a different blob, a different segment, but like maybe a bigger segment. So you're willing to maybe try to figure out if there's ways to go there, like maybe even covering like Commander cons or whatever they're called.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's Commander is just like one of the craziest like things to think about. So like for example, like was Olivia's channel, Affinity for Artifacts or whatever. It's about like 400, 500 viewers per like Commander session or whatever. And I mean, I watched it and I was like, all right, like the actual like output quality of what I'm putting is much higher than this. But then it's just like another market of people that, you know, I just have no access to. These are people that, like, if you're watching Commander, you're really going to watch Modern. Like, maybe there's like a 10, 20% max sort of.
Not that much overlap. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that's what I'm thinking about in terms of like how I could improve.
That's
like,
still the dilemma,
reach.
right? You have to be true to yourself. And like we had talked about how, like, you know, maybe you don't want to go like all in on like commander content and just do what everyone else is doing, even
Yeah.
if it gives you higher numbers, because like how maybe you won't be able to sustain your motivation that way, or you're going to be one
Yeah.
of like 200 people doing it, right?
So yeah, that is those are tricky questions. I love competitive Magic, and I think some of the changes to competitive Magic have been really good. Like I think Huey kind of did a very good first step in updating the process. I still think it's a little bit unfortunate that there's only one RC that you have to spike in order to get to the Pro Tour. A lot of people do not like the whole one and done event kind of deal, me being one of them, because I don't think it shows skill over time. But like, that's the world that, I mean, it could also just be like the presentation of those events could just be way better too, right? Like if you had like narratives, for example, in that universe, that's sick, right? Like that'd be so cool. So that's something to figure out. But again, that's also just like money and like, you know, a lot of resources you got to pour into it. And I think it can be done pretty well. But it's like having the idea and then executing on the idea. And so that's where,
of course, ideas
most
are free,
challenges
right?
lie,
Yeah. All right, man. Anus, thank you so much, man. It was really nice to catch up with you and do this real deep dive. Like, what's the best place for people to find you where you would like to be found?
Yeah, at anzidmtg on Twitter, twitch.tv/anzidmtg, and you guessed it, youtube.com/anzidmtg. So I think that's like my one superpower. At least I've got my name down on all my platforms.
All right.
But yeah, definitely check it out there, because that's when I'll be. Patreon.com/anzidmtg. I'm not shy to ask for support for any of the coverage ventures that I'm working on. Next year, there's going to be a lot of events, and I plan on being on as many of those as possible. Like I think the only thing that would really stop me from traveling is having a kid, which is, you know, on the radar, but whatever. Like until then, Pro Magic or High Stakes Magic, I'll try to get a camera over it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I look forward to seeing your continued success. Keep grinding out there, and hopefully we can talk sometime next year and just kind of do another checkpoint and see where you're at. And
that'd be sweet. Yeah.
Yeah. I wish you all the best, man. Truly.
Thank you. All right. Sounds good.